Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of Finance and Corporate Services to order. We do have quorum. There's one consent item. Could I get someone to move by Councillor Ioannidis? Any questions on the consent item? Councillor Gazzola?
Well, it's not really a question. I know we're taking a different view to this. I just want to make sure, though, that we have a lot of our own department or divisions or agencies that we're related to. I trust nothing's going to change for them.
Okay, so the question is...
Like a Rockway or a neighborhood association, if they advertise there, I trust that they're still going to get a reduced rate. Can I have that confirmed, or are we concerned about it? Or?
Okay, and who would speak to that? Ms. Johnson?
Good morning, through the chair. Yes, Councillor Gazzola, we've indicated that we have two rates, nonprofit and then the commercial rate, so we're going to keep those available for those kinds of groups.
Okay, that's fine. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware of that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions? Those in favor? And none opposed. Okay, we'll move on to the Brownfield item number 2. Mr. Morgan.
Good morning. In March of 2012, the city received a conditional offer to purchase from Novacor Communities for the 12-acre 83 Elmsdale Drive property, the city's former works yard and location of Kitchener Utilities. They intended to construct a mixed-use development consisting of 225 residential unit apartments in 2 buildings and 135-unit retirement-specific residence, along with 100,000 square feet of commercial space. Subsequent to the conditional purchase, Novacor commenced completion of extensive remediation testing in the form of Phase 1 and Phase 2 ESA and a remediation action plan. In October of 2013, the city and the region received a joint tax incremental grant application related to the remediation of the property. The applicant also applied for the regional development charge exemption through the regional's Brownfield program. The Phase 2 ESA confirmed the presence of significant quantity of landfill material, likely of an industrial origin, as well as contaminated soils with levels of zinc, mercury, and dichlorobenzene in amounts exceeding the MOE standards. The applicant has submitted estimated environmental remediation costs of $10.4 million. This amount, plus the 10% allowance for indirect costs afforded under the Joint TIG program, less assistance pending under the Regional Development Charge program, results in a maximum eligible TIG in the amount of $7.7 million. The grant proportions are determined by each municipality's share of the municipal taxes levied on the property in the year the applicant was submitted, with approximately 61% or $4.77 million being provided by the region and 38.4% or $2.98 million provided by the city. The annual payments would be based on the taxes of the property and would last approximately 7 years and would not start until the property has been remediated, redeveloped, and fully reassessed, with the municipality receiving 1 full year of taxes prior to the repayment. The property currently has an assessed value of $2.2 million, and upon completion of this development, the estimated assessed value is approximately $60 million. Based on these values, the current property taxes would be $44,000 if the property was not exempt, and upon complete build-out, the property will be generating approximately $1.26 million in annual taxes. The TIG payment schedule is attached to the report and shows the annual share, the city's annual share of $429,000 and the region's annual share of $687,000 payable over the 7 years, funded from the incremental tax revenue following remediation of the property. The region's Planning and Housing and Community Services Committee approved the region's portion of Novacor's TIG application on Tuesday, June 17th, with anticipated regional council approval expected on June 25th. The Elmsdale property, as it currently sits, is vacant, contaminated, and not generating any taxes. The Joint Regional and City Brownfield program will allow the developer the ability to clean up the property to the ministry-approved standards and develop a significant tax-generating mixed-use development. The application meets the eligibility criteria set out in the program, and as such, staff are recommending approval.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Before we get into questions, and there are 4 in the queue, just a reminder that this item is coming to planning this evening, so all planning questions should be reserved for this evening. This is strictly on the brownfield application. With that, Councillor Ioannidis.
Through you, Chair Davey, and thanks, Mr. Morgan, for your presentation. The one question that I have is, without this program that was implemented and that we're looking at, what do you think of the possibilities of that property being developed?
Through the chair, my opinion is that this property would not be developed given the financial cost associated with the cleanup.
Okay. And at the appropriate time, I'm prepared to move the recommendation unless the councillor, well, he wasn't here, so if he wants to move it, he can move it as well.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
I have a number of questions. When we were preparing to move our central maintenance facility, we had budget estimates. What did we budget for this property? What was our estimate that we would recover, which we used to reduce the cost of the new facility?
Can anyone speak to that? Ms. Houston?
I don't know the exact figure. I think it was in the order of $7 million.
Well, that seems right, but my memory wasn't good.
I can certainly get you the exact figure.
The other thing is, when we were doing that, did we make any mention of cleanup costs?
Yes, we did. That was factored into the calculations and how we set up the budget.
Was that $7 million after the cleanup costs?
The $7 million is the gross amount, and the cleanup was anticipated to be recovered through brownfield TIGs and potentially our environmental remediation account, which isn't required in this case.
But it's really another cost that we incur.
Yes, and that was budgeted and anticipated for.
So then the $7 million has to be reduced.
Either way, it's funded because it's dealt with either through the project or through the brownfield TIG account or through the environmental remediation account.
Thank you. We've done a phase 1 and phase 2 study, and I gather the phase 2 study tells us what needs to be done in order to get MOE clearance. Is that right?
That's correct.
When we come up with figures for that, who arrives at those figures?
The qualified person hired by by Novacor.
What about, do we have any say in that? Do we have any knowledge of that? Or
Through the chair, the phase 1 and phase 2 are thoroughly reviewed by the regional staff qualified to review such documents.
The other question I'm not clear on is that have we agreed to sell that property? Has this council made that decision? I know we declared it surplus. Have we received a price for it?
Through you, Chair Davey, yes, we have. Is
the price public?
I believe, I can't say for sure, but I believe it is public.
Would someone tell me what the price is that we're selling that property for?
The property was sold for $7.8 million, less the real estate services fee of 4%.
So that's what. Okay. When we sell a property like that, it's sort of a legal question. Does any of the risk carry on to the municipality because we once owned the land? This is especially important here because of the fact that there's going to be residential dwellings here. So are we risk-free after we go through this process?
I don't see anyone from legal here. I'm suspecting that would be something we might want to discuss in caucus, but I look to staff to confirm. Yes.
Well, risk is risk. Everybody.
Yeah, risk is risk. We should talk about it in caucus.
Well, now, from what I'm hearing is that the assessment now is $2 million, and it's going to be $60 million. Is that a valid assessment now? Well, why wouldn't the assessment be $7 million?
Anyone speak to that?
I mean, these are all factors that are relevant if we're going to give away.
The assessment is as it is today, and that's what we look at when we do the TIG evaluations. We look at the assessment as it stands, not that property's sale value, because the property hasn't been assessed based on that sale, because it hasn't happened at this point in time.
No, but obviously the value of the property is $7 million. Whether MPAC is up to date or not, that's the starting value of the property.
But all TIG agreements are set at a point in time, and the assessment's based on that point in time.
Well, what was the point in time?
The point in time is 2013. That's the year that they take.
This is early 2014, so if it was worth, if it's worth $7.8 million today, it was worth at least $7 million in 2013.
Mr. Chapman, did you want to add to that?
Simply to say that the assessment is set by MPAC, not by the city. It is a commercial property, and often commercial properties are assessed not based on what they trade for in the market. They're based on commercial rents, revenue projections, that sort of thing. So MPAC would have to comment on the basis for their $2.2 million assessment.
No, I appreciate that,
Okay.
but it's worth more than $2 million to...
Councillor Gazzola?
Yes?
Pardon me, your time's expired. If you want to get back in the queue. You did say you had several questions. So, Mayor Zaire.
Thanks very much. I will, I'm not sure who is going to, do you have a mover for this yet?
I'm suspecting Councillor Singh will want to move it.
Okay, and that's fine. I'll just leave it then. I would support the recommendation as it is here. And to be perfectly frank, I'm really quite surprised at all of the questions because other than the risk issue, because we have gone through this so many times, the information related to this property has been given so many times in this chamber, and we all know that the value of the property, the sale value of the property, can be completely different than the assessed value because the purchaser is looking at the potential value in the future, not what it is today, and is prepared to pay for that. And in terms of, Ms. Houston has answered the questions several times now in a very direct way, that the remediation cost, the TIG, was considered in the budgets which we had before. So $7 million was the gross, sold for 7.8, less the real estate transaction, and anticipated the TIG. How it's always amazing to me how we can turn a good story into a bad story, because this is an absolute win-win. The taxes, which will be there in the future, 7 years down the road or whatever this particular business case works out to be, are there in perpetuity. Now, we don't have to do this. And we can leave the property taxes as they are, and the remediation will not be done. Therefore, the contamination will remain, and we continue to own contaminated property. It is so clear, and
the mayor had intended to move it and make his comment, so I'm allowing it, assuming that he's not going to make further comments afterwards.
this is an absolute perfect solution for this property. And I think the question of the risk was a valid question, and that can be given to us in caucus, and I think it should be.
Thank you. We'll move to Councillor Singh.
Yes, thank you. Just a few brief questions beforehand. So obviously through the TIG program, over the next 7 years, the city's looking at subsidizing through the loss of taxes that will be recovered from the development is about $2.9 million. But that's obviously after development happens. So I've sat in council for the last 4 years. How much taxes have you recovered from that property over 4 years that is sat vacant?
Through the chair, this is a city-owned property. There's been no taxes.
And obviously, as long as we continue, I'm just trying to make sure that others involved understand that very fact. And as we continue to hold the property, we will not gain or recover any taxes going forward either.
That's correct.
Be the valuation 7 million, 10 million, 2 million, or 0 million. We will not recover any year after year taxes. As well as the city's not necessarily upfronting any costs other than foregoing future tax base assessment. Is that correct? Okay. Now the region is, but again, that's within the region's prerogative. Has the region already given some indication that they will most likely forego the DC charges as well?
Through you, Chair Davey, yes.
So they're
verbally.
They're taking a considerably even more of an investment in this than the city of Kitchener is, where the development's happening.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Well, that shows the confidence that the region has, that the lower municipality, that the city that's going to be incurring future benefit should give a considerable favorable opinion of as well. Last question. No, actually, you know what? I don't want to repeat the same question. It's already been asked. I'll make a quick comment, Mr. Chair. As I've said through my questions, the property over the last 4 years has sat and not given any benefit and will continue to do so. If development were to happen, and this seems to be very intensified, favorable development for that area, and as a ward councillor that represents that area, understands the problems that do exist in that very surrounding neighborhood. Development such as this will make that neighborhood more vibrant, more successful, and safer for the residents involved. It's just not aspect of dollars and cents, which are absolutely and necessarily important to this municipality, but also slightly important, which is quality of life. I can assure you this development will improve the quality of life of existing residents. And for that very nature, I'm very supportive that this is happening. And I will move it as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chapman, to comment?
Through Mr. Chair, I've just briefed Ms. McDonald on the question that was posed around risk, and she's advised that she can give a generic answer in terms of what MOE processes provide for. If you'd like more specifics after that, then you can recess in the caucus for legal advice.
Certainly, we'll do that now then, Ms. McDonald.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I can advise that under the MOE process, you go through a Phase 1 and Phase 2. The Phase 1 is really doing historical review of the site and what kind of activities and likelihood of contamination might be there. Phase 2 gets into all the testing and data to sort of substantiate what work has to be done, and that all is dealt with through the ministry and various, depending on what's found, there's other secondary processes that come into play. And at the end of the day, the property owner has to secure a record of site condition. So under this grant program, they would have to get a record of site condition in order to be eligible to actually get the dollars at the end of the day. And that record of site condition is what's critical to the City of Kitchener, because once it's issued, the ministry has reviewed the process and is satisfied that the site can be used for the uses that are listed on the record of site condition, and then that is what basically releases any previous owner, so in this case the City of Kitchener, from any responsibility with respect to the condition of the soils.
Very good. We'll move to Councillor Yaneski.
I have a few questions here. You talk about the offer being received by NovaCare Communities Corporation, which is the purchaser, or a related corporation. What does that cause us in terms of any risk? Because who's this related corporation? Are we dealing with another third party that's going to be flipped to, or what?
Ms. McDonald?
Yes, the intention of that language is just to allow Novacor to create a secondary company, a different company that they would have control over. So at this point, at the time that they made the application, they didn't know what entity they would actually put title in. So this is a standard practice in a lot of real estate transactions to allow one company to come in but actually create a secondary company that would hold this particular property or maybe a portion of this property. And at the time of the application, we would not have known that.
Okay, thanks. It was mentioned by Mr. Morgan that this will have to go to the region. Will this require a regional council consideration and approval, or is this done all by staff?
Through you, Chair Davey.
I can't hear you.
The TIG report was taken to regional council, regional committee last week, and will be taken to regional council. I believe it's next week. The development charge component of the program is actually approved at the staff level.
So they're going for the tax increment exemption, basically?
I'm sorry, pardon?
They're going, so what, regional council will consider what? I mean, your development charge is done by staff, so what component is done by council?
The TIG.
I'm sorry?
The TIG.
Okay. On page 2 of your report, you talk about eligible remediation costs, and then that the annual payments would not start until after remediation, redevelopment, and ultimately reassessment by impact. Yet 2 paragraphs further down, that this will all be reassessed as taxable land once the sale is completed. Seems to be 2 different time frames. Are we talking about the same thing or 2 different processes of something different? Help me understand that.
Sure. Through the chair. Once the deal closes, Novacor will move forward with the cleanup and remediation of the property. That starts the timetable rolling.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
Once the transaction closes, which is anticipated soon, then the property will be remediated,
right,
and redeveloped, and then the reassessment will occur once the redevelopment is complete.
And how long do you expect the remediation process to take place to get site approval?
I believe the remediation process may take about 4 months, and site plan approval will be concurrent with that.
But they still have to go through an official plan amendment and zone change, which is another item.
Correct.
It was mentioned with Councillor Gazzola in comments on the value of the assessment, and then on page 3 there's a valuation proposed of $59,600,000. That's assuming that the project is totally completed, and but tax dollars will be much like $446,000. Is that how that's calculated?
That's correct.
And who did that calculation?
The region, based on the impact information.
Okay. Thanks.
Councillor Fernandez?
Excuse me. Thank you. What amount of funding do we have in the Brown? Is coming from the Brownfield Incentive Program? Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And what kind of funding do we have in that fund for projects like this?
Possibly Mr. Chapman could answer that.
I don't think there's actually a fund, Mr. Chapman.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is administered through a capital account. We transfer in, the amount fluctuates. In 2014, it's about $464,000. It's a high of $700,000, a low of $325,000. So we have a detailed projection that includes all of the previously approved tax increment equivalent grants, and we've built this into the projection as well, and are essentially able to fund all of our commitments. There's a small shortfall over the 10-year window, but that will be made up through successive capital budgets.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. It's always good to see a brownfield site being cleaned up. I understand the line of questioning from various councillors. Just help me understand and make sure that I'm really clear on this.
Pardon me, that's not you.
Okay. it's not that we're not getting property taxes through those 7 years. It's that we're not collecting it anyways from ourselves, essentially, right? We own the land. We don't pay ourselves the taxes. We're
Correct.
just sitting in sort of abeyance until the project is completed. And the project completion, the remediation is about a 2-year window. Is that my understanding from the report?
Through the chair, the remediation portion of the project would likely take about 4 or 5 months.
Oh, okay. Why did I think it was taking longer? All right. Should it take longer, there wouldn't really be an additional cost to us, would there?
Through the chair, there's no additional cost. The number you see is a cap. That's the
I'm sorry?
The number that has been quoted in the report is as a cap, so there won't be an increase.
Okay. All right, great. I know that this has been brought to us a few times, but I think that it needs to be said that if this is the way we're going to start our day, with challenging each other, it's going to be a really long day. Questions need to be asked, whether they were asked before or 6 months ago or a year ago. It's all in fairness. I think this is an open and democratic process. We have a right to ask questions.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I'd like to waste 10 seconds following up on that comment too, and I take exception from Mayor Zaire saying we've discussed this before, everybody knows about it. And yet I asked several questions of staff, and they look at each other, and I'm not blaming staff for not knowing it, okay? But these items really aren't in everybody's mind, and so I think it's reasonable that they be asked, even if the answer has been given before. I have a couple of other questions. Does the province share in this at all? And what I'm thinking about is there are 3 components to our municipal taxes. There's regional, there's local, and there's educational, which is really a provincial component. Do they contribute towards this, and have they been approached to contribute towards this? Or further, are there any special grants to municipalities for going in this direction?
Mr. Morgan.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any programs. The applicant may be aware of programs that we don't know.
Okay. My final question, and then after I would like to make some comments, is when the work is all done, it's done by the applicant, do we ever get to review what it has cost to do for all of these things, and have they been done in a reasonable fashion, or have they been done whatever way they want because it's being reimbursed? What follow-up is there, or what opportunities are there on the part of the municipalities?
Mr. Morgan.
Through the chair, the city and the regional staff review the invoices as they come in. No money is paid until such time as the invoices have been reviewed. Also, there's a third-party auditor, and that's a requirement of the program that this application be audited.
And the third-party auditor reports to whom?
Basically to the region.
Should they not also be reporting to us? Or?
We also get copies as well.
When you say we don't pay anything, what do you mean when you say we don't pay anything until it's reviewed?
Through the chair, we have to see, if the project costs $10,100,000, we have to see the invoices that add up to $10,100,000.
Yeah, but we don't pay, the applicant is paying for that. We don't pay that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Ioannidis?
Quiet comments?
There's no more questions, so if you want to start comments.
Yeah, through you, Chair Davey, I just want to reiterate some of the comments that were mentioned by Mayor Zaire and Councillor Singh. I think we're forgetting that we have an incredible story here. We have a property that is being remediated from a former work site and also from being adjacent to a former landfill site. Without this brownfield program, the property would, in reality, would just sit vacant and provide no vitality to the community. It'd be an eyesore like it is the way it is right now. It's a testament to the city and to the region for being forward thinkers and wanting to improve our environment and in endorsing such a sustainable project, growth project such as this magnitude. Not to mention all the tax revenue that in the future that this property will generate for the community. And I also want to thank NovaCare for taking on a lot of risks, since we are talking about risk, because there's still risk for them as well. So I want to thank them.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
Gee, that was fast. I've heard it on a couple of occasions. Now, we have an incredible story here, and I'm not saying we don't. But where does that say that in the process we can't ask some questions about it? If it's such an easy thing to deal with, why are we even dealing with it here? Well, let's just throw the money on the table and carry on. I think it's appropriate. I don't think we need to be called to task for asking some questions. I'm not a fool. I'm not opposed to what's happening here. I sat on the other side of the fence here. I know what it is. I know what it is to see properties just sit there vacant and just die away, nothing happens, and when there's buildings, they become unsafe locations. I'm not opposed to that. And I'm not opposed to the necessity to have to kickstart some things. I think that's pretty much common sense, because land is never going to go away. It doesn't disappear. If it's contaminated now and it's not cleaned up, it'll be contaminated 1,000 years from now. I appreciate that. I understand that. I understand we need to do things, and I understand that I can appreciate that this region is in the forefront in doing these things. But I also ask, I look around, and $7 million is coming from this, from the municipalities. Well, it's coming from our taxpayers, okay? Municipalities don't, it's coming from our taxpayers. Another $3.5 million are coming from development charges. Well, those are our future taxpayers that will be paying for that. When I look at this, the province, they're not throwing anything into the pot. The other big point about taxes, we're going to make $1 million a year more in taxes. And I think that's great. The fact of the matter is, we'll probably end up with $1.2 million more in expenses. You don't make profit on taxes. I mean, it's the way, we need to move forward. But this whole thing of, hey, we're making taxes and we're not getting any taxes now. We haven't had any taxes on that property, I would imagine, for 30 years, as long as I forget when we started using it as a municipal property. That property has value, though. It has value more than $2 million. I'm not going to support what's before us, because I think, to me, the pendulum has swung too far. I feel that we're giving everything into it, and I don't know that the developer is putting something into the pot too, and that's why I have voted against this program in the past, not because it's not a good program, not because it's something that we shouldn't be doing. It's an excellent program, but I just think the parameters need to be reviewed. All of a sudden here now we're dealing with a $10 million issue. That's a lot of money. I would love to sit down in 5 years and look at NovaCare's financial statements and see how they made out on this. Maybe that might be a test of how do we share things. How do we're partners in this. Maybe that's a test of how do we share the partnership expenses and gains. So, just want to make it clear, I'm not going to support this. I'm not saying that I don't think it's a great idea. I don't think it's a program that we need to get out of. We need to be in it. And in all probability in the future, we're going to be in it even further. Not opposed to that. I just think we need to look at it and we need to tone it down a bit. And I would like a recorded vote. I'm sure somebody will ask for that at the end.
Very good. Recorded vote's been called. Councillor Urbanovich.
Thank you very much. Finding the discussion and the debate this morning rather intriguing. Probably has something to do with the stage of where we're at in 2014. Having said that, I will be supporting the recommendation that's before us. I think the one thing that we need to be absolutely clear on is that the proposal that's before us is not looking at an investment from the taxpayers of the city. It's looking at an investment from the taxpayers of the buildings that are going to be constructed. Buildings that wouldn't likely be constructed without this kind of incentive program in place. And we've seen other examples where properties in the community have been cleaned up in the past. And this is the next step of another property that's going to be cleaned up and that's going to ultimately bring additional revenues to the taxpayers of our to the tax base in our community. This incentive program has been lauded by many people, not just across Ontario, but across our country, in fact, for the fact that it has been put in place, that it's working, and that it's working well. And while I absolutely agree, members of council have the right to ask relevant questions, I think it's important that as we talk about these kinds of initiatives, that we also talk about them factually and don't end up trying to put spin on them that ends up not serving the electorate in an informative way. So I certainly would hope, I would have anticipated this would have been a unanimous vote in favor. It's clear that's not going to be the case, and I do hope, however, that it will, that the majority of council will be in favor, and we can move forward on this, clean up the property, and start making a difference on it in our community.
Thank you. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. Councillor Zola brings up an interesting point, and I'm wondering if we've done this in the past. Have we taken a look at the implications of cleaning up a brownfield site 2 years after, 4 years after, 6 years after? Have we ever done that? And I know it's comments, but it just was raised the question.
Mr. Morgan.
I don't believe I don't believe the city has done that in the past. It may be something we could look at in the future.
Yeah, I would be very interested to see, especially because I was confused about the timelines with the remediation. I'd be very interested to be able to follow this through. So is it possible for council to receive an update of where we stand on this site a year from now? And then again, as the development proceeds, maybe in 3 years. So a year from now and then 3 years from now. Is that possible? Can we put that in some kind of a plan?
Through the chair, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gazzola, I have you in the queue again. If you've used your 5 minutes for your comments, is there...
Jump up and say point of order. Councillor Urbanovic has called me a liar. It talked about factual and putting spins on things. Did he not call me a liar?
He didn't reference you by name, but if...
I was the only one that spoke in the opposition.
Those are procedural rules.
Yeah,
Councillor Yaneski.
When I read this report, I was happy to see it come forward, yet I was cautious in terms of the direction that we're going. I'm happy to see that a sale is going to be taking place and that remediation will be followed through. I know we've had the property, I mean, I've been there working at that time with meetings with staff and engineering, et cetera, back in the mid-'70s, so we've had it for 40 years or even more. And I know it's been a storage facility for our city, and I felt that some contamination probably did take place over a period of years and basically has to be cleaned up. And I'm glad to see that it will be. I know we have these programs in place to provide for cleanup purposes, but I thought 7 years was rather a lengthy time to provide a tax exemption on this for this particular operator. I know we'll be dealing with a zone change later on in the official plan and the subsequent meetings today, and those projects look exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing them come forward as well. Since we have owned the lands for 40 years, no taxes have been coming in because no taxes come in on city property. Even the city hall right here, there's no taxes coming in. It's just the way the system works. And each property has a particular value depending on where its location is. But if you sell the property, eventually tax dollars are going to come through, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm reluctantly prepared to support this, but I want to still mull this over till next week. So I will be supporting the application at this point in time, but I still want to do some more research myself on this.
Thank you. I didn't have any questions, and I'll say only that I believe the Brownfield program has high value. It's one of my favorite programs that the municipality has, simply because this is a fine example that benefits the city, it benefits the developer in this case, and it benefits the residents. So that's the question. Part of the problem here, I'm looking at the timing, 10 minutes. Yes, the quantum is big, so I understand the questions, but in terms of the value of the program, I don't think there's much question there at all, so I will be supporting. It has been moved by Councillor Singh, and a recorded vote was called. Voting is open. Those in favor? And opposed? That carries. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, the Comprehensive Accounts Receivable Collection Policy. Mr. Slay, when you're ready.
There are 2 collection policies being recommended for approval today. I-517, which is the utility and accounts receivable policy, and I-518, which deals with the collection of property taxes. The key features of each policy are highlighted in my report. The spirit of both policies is to ensure transparency, accountability, and fairness for all ratepayers. Having council-approved policy is good practice for municipalities and ensures staff and council deal with our customers in a consistent and equitable manner. I'd also like to add that once we have a new billing system implemented, which is SAP, there may be adjustments, updates required to the collection policies at that time. So that's my brief presentation, Chair Davey, and I would have to take any questions.
Very good, thank you. It is a short report. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, and you may not be able to answer them, but when I was looking at the policy on page 3-6, and it talks about tenant deposit amounts, and it was under commercial customers, 3 times the monthly average of the previous 12 months consumption history. Is that what a commercial customer may have to pay if don't have a good payment history? Is that what I'm understanding here?
So it will be 3 years average for average over 3 months, and if they don't have a good payment history, they would have to pay a deposit of 3 months. The other option is that they can go on pre-authorized plan, and we would waive the deposit.
Okay, so
there is
that's
an
good
option.
to know. They have another option because I guess I was a little bit concerned that if it's a small business owner, and the previous business may have failed because of a partnership or a reason that they want to open something else. I don't want to be, we're trying to get businesses to start here. So, okay, I'm glad that they have another option. And I know that we have had to turn off gas when people haven't paid their bills, but just correct me if I'm wrong. We would not do that during a winter season. Because I think we have to be, there's a certain comfort temperature that we have to maintain. One of our bylaws, if I'm not mistaken, one of our bylaws does say that we have to maintain, or landlords have to maintain a certain temperature within the house. Is that correct?
We actually do shut off in the winter time.
We do. Okay.
There is a break during the Christmas time that we don't shut off. So December to the first or 2 weeks of January, we don't shut off. And when the temperatures are really low, in terms of -10 or below, we don't shut them off during that time.
Okay, that's great. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, so you mentioned that we didn't before have a collection policy for property taxes. What did we do?
We followed the Municipal Act, and which we still would do.
You followed what?
The Municipal Act. The Municipal Act actually outlines the collection policy that we have here, but it is good practice to have a formal collection policy for taxes.
Well, that's the question I wanted. Why, if there's rules there already, why do we add to them? What is the benefit of having?
It's something that customers could read much more easily than the Municipal Act. So we want to have this. We want to be transparent. We want to have this on the website that customers can access.
Okay, if that's the case, that's fine. I can appreciate that. I was concerned about interest that we pay people when they've been overcharged or not. And what are we currently paying them now?
So
this is for amounts on deposits, or if they've overpaid, do we pay interest? What rate do we? I know when they're short what we charge them. When it's the other side of the fence.
So currently we pay them prime, which is 3%, less 1. So we pay them 2%.
Yeah.
And the recommendation in front of you today is prime less 2%, which would be 1%.
Yeah. Why would we not just pay them at the rate that we invest our money? That's fair. That's transparent.
Councillor Gazzola, it fluctuates.
No. I would imagine the prime rate does too.
The prime rate has actually been consistent over the last 2 years.
Well, it has for the last 2 years, but both you and I are older than 2 years. I just wondered if that was a consideration, to be fully transparent. We've had their money, and we make the big 1.25%, so I don't give them 1.25%. That's fine. That's something you can leave you with to think about. On 321, I was surprised that if someone overpays their taxes, they have to wait 120 days before they're given any interest credit. Is that what that? I'm sorry. It's on the bottom of 321. It's the last section. It's item number 2.
Yes.
Why wouldn't interest accrue from the day that a result came down? Once a decision is made, I'm sure if it goes the other way, we charge interest as of the date the decision is made. That's something I can leave with you to look at. Okay.
I think this is just to answer your question. I think this is consistent with the Municipal Act.
Yeah.
And the Act allows us to wait for 120 days, and that's what we're following the Act.
When you say they allow us, does that mean we have the freedom to be fair and transparent?
Mr. Chapman, do you have something to add?
Through Mr. Chair, I think the Act is prescriptive, so we're obligated to follow it, and I would suggest that there is a parallel to underpayments. You're correct, this relates to A or B decisions. If there was an underpayment, we would have to follow our normal billing cycle. So there are minimum provisions in terms of the amount of time before the due date. It takes us time to issue the bill. So I think the province has simply recognized that it similarly takes us time to process an adjustment, and they've said 4 months is the window of time within which it's reasonable to do that.
All right, if you're going both ways, then that's fair. Fine. Thank you.
Councillor Uneski?
Well, on the same topic of this being overbilled, and that was my question, but slightly different twist to it. Instead of charging interest, and if a customer is overbilled, why don't you just give them the money back?
With respect to taxes or utilities?
I'm sorry?
You're talking about taxes or utilities?
Well, taxes, both, either way. If you've been overcharged and an error is discovered that you have overpaid,
okay, Mr. Chapman,
why don't you just give that portion back instead of worrying about interest rates and stuff of that nature?
Through the chair, we do. The answer is we do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. All the Act says is that if we drag our feet and take longer than 4 months to do it, we owe the ratepayer interest. But in all reality, typically people will call in and ask for an adjustment, ask for a check, or we have a billing cycle which would pick up the adjustment within that time frame. Okay.
I didn't read that into this. I didn't see that answer that we refund right away. I mean, that's great. I'm happy with that, but I didn't read into it. Unless it's not there, I missed it.
Okay, no further questions. Can I get a mover for this? Moved by Councillor Fernandez. Any discussion? Not seeing any. Those in favor? That carries unanimously. And that concludes Finance and Corporate Services Committee. Sorry, one moment. Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, I know that we have to bring information items up forward for discussion. I just have a couple of questions on the business plan.
Okay, so we bring forward a motion on bringing that to a discussion item. Everyone clear on that? So the motion is to move the information item on the business plan status report into a discussion item. Those in favor? And opposed? Sorry, I have to see that one more time. Those in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously. Councillor Fernandez, please continue.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions on page... sorry. On page 14, IF1, the development of the business case for the expansion of the Dune Pioneer Community Centre. It says the project planned to start in November 2014. What part of the plan is that looking at the funding? Is that I mean, certainly I wouldn't believe that we'd be looking at the design as yet. Where would we be in November 2014, and where would we go from there? What's the next steps?
Okay, which page are we on?
I'm on IF1-14 under divisional projects, the development of the business case for the expansion of the Dune Pioneer Park Community Centre.
Okay, Mr. May.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just draw your attention to the description of the project. What staff would begin to do at that stage is the community and stakeholder consultations in terms of what are the exact needs within the facility. So it's very preliminary work, but it forms a significant basis for the business plan.
Okay, thank you. And the next one I had was on page... Goodness, sorry about that. I had a question about the comprehensive zoning, but having spoken to Natalie, I understand that now. On page 20, so IF1-20, under corporate talent strategies, it says that it's complete. It says that it was delayed and now it's completed. And in the paragraph that starts with first draft completed and reviewed with the HR director, internal reviews and approved to take place in the spring, following this communication and implementation plan for a role of the strategy to be created. So we were doing some needs identified through employee consultation, organizational strategies. So what can you share with us a little bit about what we've found out regarding staff's performances, staff's the plans and the programs? Is there more detail here, and when would we actually be getting this report, or have we had it and I missed it?
Mr. Chapman.
Through Mr. Chair, I would be happy to follow up with you. As noted there, it's been reviewed with the HR Director. I have not seen the report, in fact, yet, so I can't comment on the substance of it. But I'll make a note, and Councillor Fernandez follow up with you once I have seen the first draft.
Okay, that would be great. And I think that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. And there are two more people in the queue, and I would advise, again, in general terms, I'm not sure we have appropriate staff to answer in-depth questions on this stuff. So, Councillor Etherington.
Yeah, two questions. On page 1F19, number 14, the issue involving Rockway, I just wanted to find out in a general way whether we've had any interest from on a public-private inquiry. Has there been any interest?
Mr. May.
1F19, number 14.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the first step in the process prior to issuing an RFP is to look at potential land acquisition. So we're in that phase. We have not gone out with an RFP at this point.
Okay. And my other question was in page 1F127, number 114 on the boathouse. It indicates there that the boathouse project is on track and mentions that it will be, at least the date mentioned there is June. Obviously that is not happening. I just wondered if this is out of date, or is there some other development happening in relation to the boathouse? I understand it will be mid-September before it opens.
Mr. Wilmer's taking this one.
Through the chair, yes, Councillor Etherington is correct. It likely is September. I think that this is, and you're right, this is out of date. That was the status as of April 30th.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Page 17, 18 in planning section. I know that we've been working on the Heritage Register, but I also understand from Leon Bensasson that there was objectives to start rolling on another Heritage District, and I don't see it here unless it's going to be scheduled for 2015. I don't know. Can you help me out on that?
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's actually not my understanding of what's happening, so I can confirm with Mr. Bensasson and have him respond directly to Councillor Yaneski. My understanding is that we're focusing very much on the cultural heritage landscape study at this point, and that'll be the focus for the next number of months, but I can certainly get information to you.
Okay, thank you. I knew there's other priorities, but I thought this would be coming on a table soon, and I thought it would be like this year sometime, but I didn't know when. Thank you. Page 1-9. What's the status of the current status on the Morogoro project?
Mr. Wilmer?
In Mr. Regeer's absence, I'll attempt to answer this. I'm sorry, what business plan project number are you talking about?
17.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have anything more than what's written in the report. I know that it's a multi-year program and we're towards the end of it. There may be about another year to go.
Okay, Councillor Banovich, do you have some insight in this?
Yeah, I can speak to it. The current funding with the federal government for the Municipal Partnership and Economic Development is coming to an end in March 2015, so the end of the current federal fiscal year. And so any of the existing programs would come to an end at that time unless there's a negotiation for an extension, and FCM is discussing new programs with the federal government as well.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Singh.
Yes, thank you. And quickly, explanation is provided as well. I just want a little bit more elaborate information for the customer service strategy phase 3. It shows as hold and, page 1-7. Item number 3 speaks to until the completion of phase 2. I just want to confirm phase 2 is proceeding and normal, and there will not be any further delays.
Yes, through the chair. Phase 2 of the customer service strategy is proceeding as planned. We are in talks now about the customer relationship management software, and you'll see the e-services strategy piece come to council later tonight. And the phase 3 piece is on hold, partly because the phase really is related to expanding the CRM into more areas of the organization, and so we won't actually have purchased it until the end of probably 2014.
Okay.
So phase 3 will occur in 2015.
2015, end of 2015, middle of 2015? Do we know? Or that's too preliminary to really answer that?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, the question was? Councillor Singh, do you have a question? I didn't hear that question. Sorry.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, it's my mumbling day. When around in 2015 are we looking at?
For the implementation of phase 3?
That's correct.
It will probably, I would suggest it would be midway through 2015 that it will start.
Okay, all right, thank you. And the other question I had was for page 1-9, item number 15, startup landing pad. I understand we have received provincial approval for this. So is the granting process now established, and have we started receiving interest?
Mr. Wilmer?
Through the chair, I can have Mr. Regier follow up with those answers.
Please and thank you.
Okay, there are no further questions then. This does conclude Finance and Corporate Services. Mayor Zaire, did you want to